welcome to TechTalk, where you'll hear the latest in technology and investment trends directly from the trendsetters. I'm your host, Fritz Spencer, member of EisnerAmper's Technology and Life Sciences practice, and with me today is very special guest and successful entrepreneur, Katya Fisher, CEO and co-founder of Aracor, an AI-native platform built for the pace, precision, and scrutiny of modern transactions. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to EisnerAmper wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also find us on YouTube at EisnerAmper. In this episode, we'll explore the art of dealmaking perfected by AI, security and compliance within due diligence and AI, and much more. We hope today's insightful conversation influences the next steps for your startup. Katya, I want to thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Likewise, it's always a fun conversation with you. So, to get us started, would you mind giving us a brief background on yourself?
Absolutely. So, my name is Katya Fisher. I was born in New York City, grew up in the New York area. I became an attorney, graduated from law school around 2010. It was a very interesting time because it was during the Great Recession. So I went into law school thinking that my career and life were all taken care of for me, and I exited law school not knowing what I was going to do next. I ended up starting my own law practice quite young and early in my career. It fortunately became fairly successful. And by the time I was in my mid-30s, I became a partner in a major AM 200 law firm where I oversaw the technology transactions and blockchain practice. And I was also chief privacy officer for a national law firm. I then went in-house for the last 6 years. I've been in-house overseeing legal for a family office holding company that oversees a number of companies and business lines in technology. The main group of companies is called the Constructor Group. We have a venture fund that invests in deep tech, so artificial intelligence, quantum computing, so forth, a lot of ed tech as well. We have an ed tech business where we focus on the future of education and how science and technology and education are all converging. We have a university in Germany. It's a nonprofit institution, but we have the majority stake in the university and oversee it. And we have several other businesses, tech companies as well. And the family office overall has about 300 companies in its portfolio between businesses that were founded or run, and also as an LP in several venture funds and the portfolio of companies there. So I have a team of 7 people who report to me in legal globally. I manage all the external legal spend worldwide. So all the big law firms, all the small law firms, everybody in many, many countries around the world. And it's been an amazing, incredible experience. Basically, you name it, I've seen it at this point. I've done everything from very, very early stage venture capital deals all the way to late stage private equity, family office matters, tax structuring, intellectual property, nonprofits, academia, you name it. It's been really, really cool. The only thing is that I get bored really easily. And I think I have a very curious nature. I like to be busy. I like to be stressed. I like to have a lot of things on my mind all at the same time. And I like to connect a lot of dots in order to be happy. And so because of that, despite everything that I was doing, for me, of course, it wasn't enough. And I realized when I started doing all of these things, especially in the last few years, taking a look at all the companies that I oversee, all of the deals that we do, all of the projects that we work on, I saw the same problems coming up over and over again, the same pain points. And a lot of it had to do with the fact that you have legal teams, and then legal still has to coordinate with business, with finance, with outside counsel. There's so many stakeholders when you're looking at a deal, right? When you're looking at corporate law, when you're looking at investments, mergers, acquisitions, etc. And I saw a lot of areas that I felt were very inefficient. places where we were either spending way too much money on outside counsel or just wasting a lot of time. People ask the same questions over and over again. It's very hard to get, answers and really take a lot of information when you're doing a deal and you have all these deal docs and you have so much flying around to just be able to go ahead and dilute it down to the basic facts and what's important for everyone. And because of the fact that I work in tech and I work around technologists, I started thinking a lot about how technology could really disrupt that and how it could change the course of things. And so Aracor was founded out of that. We started it off really as just a project inside of Constructor Group, working with my legal team to see what are the things that we can do, utilizing new technologies to go ahead and build new processes for the way that we do due diligence, the way that we verify deals, the way that we review legal materials, contracts, etc. And we ended up spinning it out into its own company. So that's how I ended up becoming the founder and CEO of Aracor.
At EisnerAmper, we are creative problem solvers that take a 360-degree approach focusing on you. We're an award-winning firm with decades of experience. EisnerAmper, let's get you ready.
Wow, a lot of dots to connect there. That's incredible, that journey you've talked about, your CV, all the different hats you've worn, so much to dive into. But let's really dive into Aracor. So you've spun it out of this Constructor Group and you're building it now. You mentioned it a little bit, but really, what was the specific challenge or problem or set of problems that you noticed you needed to solve?
So the real set of problems that I decided I wanted to focus on was that, in legal, there's lots of problems to focus on, right? there's lots of things that you could be focused on or working on. For me, very specifically, it was the process of the anatomy of due diligence and closing a deal. And so when you do due diligence on a company, let's say if it's early stage or if it's late stage, it's just at larger scale. But let's start with early stage companies. You have a situation whereby there's a couple things that happen where you have to combine legal together with business and finance and a lot of these different stakeholders, as I was saying earlier. And so imagine when you're just verifying the terms of a deal. Let's start with that. So what usually happens is you have somebody on the business side, somebody on the investment side who goes ahead and negotiates a term sheet, right? And the term sheet's like 3 pages. And those 3 pages are enough for both parties to feel very confident and very satisfied that they know what they're getting themselves into. And then what happens is that they then have to go ahead and engage legal counsel. And legal counsel comes back and they go through all of the negotiations, discussions, etc. And they come back with, instead of 3 pages on a term sheet, more like, 100 pages, right? You have a shareholder agreement and side letters and cap table and all this stuff. And then at that point, somebody has to do the job of verifying the term sheet against the actual deal docs and conclusively stating, okay, this reflects what we originally negotiated. Or if it doesn't, why doesn't it? Right? Why is there an anomaly? Maybe there's an anomaly because during the process of diligence, during the process of negotiation, terms were changed. Or maybe there's just a mistake or an error. Like humans make mistakes. And just that review can take hours. And usually it's either done by associates in a big law firm who have to verify everything and annotate it, or it's done by the in-house legal team, or sometimes it's done by business themselves, depending on the size, the nature of the investment, the company, how they do things. So that's the first problem that I wanted to solve, is what if you could just automate that process? What if you can just take your deal docs, take your term sheet, throw it into a system, and in 5 minutes, get back a full report and know exactly what it is that you're signing and getting yourself into. Then we sort of took that concept and figured out how we can scale that across other parts of the life cycle of a deal. So for example, in due diligence, you go ahead, you get access to a data room on a company. Let's say the company has 100 employees. Instead of reading 100 employment agreements, could you just get a very quick report that tells you, hey, everything's in order except, Joe Bob over here never signed an IP assignment agreement, and that's a red flag, et cetera, et cetera. So that instead of spending weeks doing diligence and tons of money on outside counsel, you would be able to do this very, very quickly, figure out what the red flags are, and then decide what needs to be actually escalated to legal counsel. And then those principles, they stick around throughout the life cycle because a deal doesn't end when you make an investment or an acquisition. The deal ends when you make an exit. And so what frequently happens inside of companies, and I'm talking about like venture funds, private equity funds, M&A shops, corporate M&A, right? Companies that do different types of deals, is you have a lot of institutional amnesia. And what ends up occurring is that people, they come and go inside of a company, they do lots of things, they forget. And then there's a deal that you did a year ago or 2 years ago, and suddenly somebody has a question to ask about it. Like, oh, hey, wait a second. That deal that we did last year, do we have information rights? Are we board observers or do we have a board seat? I don't remember. It happens all the time. Right? And so instead of having to go ahead and have now 6 people have to go through the documents, through the emails, figure everything out, could you just have a software tool that will instantly give you that information and that access and will basically help companies to understand exactly, what is the timeline, what are the decisions that were made in the past, what's going on so that they can make better decisions moving forward. So those are the things that we really focus on. So we don't focus a lot on legal research. We don't focus on litigation. There's a lot of areas in law that are just not for us. We're very, very specific to the anatomy of a deal.
I mean, it sounds like your focus is really on the technology, building out this tool to do multiple jobs within the life cycle of a venture. And so I'd love to to dive into that the technology that you're building. How are you developing it? How are you noticing the speed up of your solutions? And then also if there's been, customer traction with your technology.
Yeah. So basically, the way that we've been building out the solutions, right? There's a couple of elements. So the first thing is that we're very fortunate in that I have an in-house legal team. And so we sort of have this built-in ability to test everything in real time and get a lot of real-time verification on whether something is working, whether something is actually valuable, something is useful, or something's not working. So that's one part of it. And I would say that that's definitely one of our very strong competitive advantages because we have access to a tremendous amount of data and just knowledge internally. The second part is that, we're going through this massive transformation right now when it comes to generative AI. And so it's really interesting. 2 years ago, I was a professor, an adjunct professor at Florida State University's law school. And I taught a course on law and technology. And I remember on my first day of the class, I asked the class, I said, raise your hand if you've used ChatGPT. And only 2 people had raised their hands. Can you imagine now if I were to ask that question? Everybody, right? I mean, who would not raise their hand? And the point is, that's the difference of 2 years. That's how fast everything has changed, everything has moved, right? Now every company is an AI company. Everything is AI this and AI that. And so in a way, yes, there's a certain bubble element to it. But in another sense, this is the most massive, major technology transformation that we've witnessed in a very long time. It's a really big deal. I mean, there's a reason why. And so what that means for a technology company in this day and age is that you have to have the know-how and the prowess to behave like a traditional software company, right? You still need to fulfill traditional tech roles. You still need to think about UI, UX. You need to think about, the process, the development, etc. But in addition to that, there's this other element of understanding generative AI. And so to that end, we have some very, very strong developers who focus exclusively on natural language processing, on NLP, who are also part of the team. And that part is really, really fascinating and interesting because that segment of the market is constantly transforming. So the things that, a company could have access to or be capable of 6 months ago or a year ago, 6 months later, it's completely different and it's transforming. And so for us, it's been a lot of fun to be part of that and to kind of sit on the cutting edge and see what's coming next and see how can we incorporate these new ideas? How can we incorporate these new processes? How can we do things differently? How can we also kind of forecast what's going to come next so that we're ready for it? So we've been putting together all these different puzzle pieces. In terms of usage and customers, we have laid low so far. We've been kind of very much heads down working on the product. We do have a list of users, but it's kind of a small, tight group. So obviously, we have several companies that are all within our ecosystem, in the Constructor ecosystem, where we have all the teams that are using the product. We have Duchess Management, which is the business of Gordon Kaplan, who's one of my co-founders, who used to be the chairman of Loki Farr and Gallagher. They do a lot of deals. They oversee a lot of deals and investments for a large number of major brands and companies. And so they're one of our key users as well. Fuel Venture Capital, which is actually a Florida-based venture capital firm. They were one of our investors. And so they themselves are users of the product, which is how they first got involved. And then we have a number of others like that. So we've kind of stayed very, very close-knit and very tight as we continue to figure out exactly how we want to build this and move forward.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned kind of like the future state of constantly adapting and evolving. And I'm curious to know, you've seen the life cycle of so many ventures in your family office, career path. I'm curious to what's next on the career path or life path for Aracor. Are you raising? Are you hiring? Are you, launching? What's next for Aracor?
Yeah, so we are hiring very actively right now. We just actually onboarded a few new kind of major people in the last couple of months, and we're continuing to build out the team. So that's one big part of it. We are focused on doing a much larger launch of the product in Q1 of 2026. We will be raising, but not until after that. So obviously, we're kind of fortunate to be this sort of, I'm like an intrapreneur that it's coming out of a larger ecosystem. The other thing is we're very cautious about that because if you follow the market in legal tech and also just in AI in general, there's been a lot of companies that have raised enormous sums of money. They've gotten so much press and then they've imploded. And so we want to be very cautious about our approach, a little bit more slow and steady wins the race in terms of how we do things while we kind of see, what's going on with the technology and wait for a lot of dust to settle. Because as I mentioned before, the underlying tech that's being utilized right now, it's transforming so quickly that sometimes things that weren't even possible a few months ago are possible now, which is exciting, but you have to be ready for it and you have to know exactly how to harness that.
Right. The landscape is changing every day. So you guys are watching that happen and adjusting as you see fit. Well, I know we could probably go for a full hour here talking about this venture, but I'd love to know, and if you could leave us with some closing remarks for some advice for other entrepreneurs who may be in your shoes or maybe want to be wearing them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say one of the biggest things, and if you read about me or if you see other interviews, it's kind of like a running theme. But I think that getting over your fears in life is one of the biggest things. I would say that one of the things for me that I always have to be very mindful of is, first of all, trusting my intuition. I think that any founder in any business should always trust their intuition. One of the biggest things in life that you will always regret is that you didn't. Because a lot of times what happens is you end up a founder of a new company, especially if you're like a first-time founder, or if you're in a new space and you have ideas and you have thoughts, and then other people tell you you're wrong or you're crazy or you're not experienced enough or whatever, right? And you start to internalize those things that people tell you. And by internalizing those things, you end up making decisions that weren't your decisions. And when those decisions end up not working out, the only person you have to blame is yourself, right? You turn around and you're like, I knew I shouldn't have done that. I knew I should have done it like this. Just follow your guide. Just do things your way. Because at the very least, if you fail, you can look back and then be at least proud of the fact that you did it on your terms. So that's the first thing. I think the second is don't be afraid to fail. Failure is quite common. Most people fail. Most projects fail. Just learn how to fail very fast and get back super quickly. But, being afraid of ever failing also will just keep you paralyzed. So I would say that those are my two biggest pieces of advice for any founder.
Yeah, one of the adages that has always stuck with me about failing fast is that if you're, driving the car and it's about to go over the cliff, investors don't want to see skid marks. Send it full send the whole time.
I was going to say you jump out of the car, but okay, we'll do it your way.
Nope, send it. Well, Katya, I want to thank you so much for having this conversation with me today. It was an absolute pleasure.
It was such a pleasure. Thank you so much, Fritz.
Of course. And for those who would like to follow Aracor, what's the best way to connect with you or with the company?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, you can always follow me on LinkedIn. I'm fairly active and present there. Aracor has a presence there as well. If you go to our website, aracor.ai, you can sign up for our newsletter and you can also sign up for our waitlist. So always happy to talk to people, always happy to field any inquiries.
So excited to follow your journey along in this venture and all the successes that are to come. And a special thanks to our listeners for tuning into Tech Talk, the entrepreneurs and innovators who turn to EisnerAmper for assurance, tax, advisory, and outsourcing solutions to help propel their business forward. Again, don't forget to subscribe to EisnerAmper wherever you listen to your podcasts or visit EisnerAmper.com for more tech news that you can use.